A lot of the time when making videos about the economy, I feel like I'm repeating myself. At this point, it's pretty clear to me, and probably to you too, that wealth inequality is growing. A handful of people own most of the stuff, while all of the rest of us have to slave away either in really dull 40-hour-week corporate jobs where we are doomed to speak in stakeholder language and say stuff like, "We're aligned on low-impact deliverables, positioning them as mission-critical to maintain stakeholder confidence. Let's circle back to reinforce the narrative and ensure role continuity." Which is word salad for we're all doing meaningless bullshit, but pretending it's important so we don't get fired. And if you don't participate in this daily exercise of disguising utter meaningless bullshit with corporate buzzwords and pretending you're passionate about it, you're probably working a minimum wage gig economy job, which is objectively an even worse fate. You don't get sick pay, have no labour rights, and can probably get fired willy-nilly if your manager is having a bad day. Which wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have to fork over a huge chunk of money every month just so you don't end up homeless. In my case, I was one of these office monkeys and had a job in finance, a field with particularly large amounts of meaninglessness. But I got sick of it pretty quickly, not just because of the corporate jargon, which I honestly found some amusement in, but mostly because I was flabbergasted at the role that finance played in the economy and how it had mostly enabled these rich guys to own more and more stuff. And I didn't really want to be part of it anymore. All I wanted to do was to spend my days learning more and more about the depressing reality of how and why finance had sort of taken over the complete economy, forcing all of us to relentlessly generate shareholder value. Sadly, this goal was at odds with the goal my manager and the shareholders had for me, which was producing endless Excel sheets and PowerPoint slides to help them make more money. Anyway, as you might have guessed, I ended up quitting that job and I'm now instead making videos about the economy to tell you why these guys have become so undeservingly rich. And I have made a lot of videos explaining quite a few concepts. But there's a specific financial engineering trick the rich guys use that I haven't spoken about yet. Stock buybacks.
S&P companies spent $2 trillion on buybacks over the past 5 years.
What a great opportunity to be able to use every marginal dollar of distributions to be able to buy back our shares.
Chevron has announced a $75 billion stock buyback.
Stock buybacks have actually a huge impact on our economy, but not a lot of people actually know what they are. And I think it's really important that more people understand it, so we can maybe one day reshape our economy from being a luxury spa for a few wealthy people in which all the rest of us serve them, to a system that doesn't make the majority of us feel dreadful all the time. So here's the deal with stock buybacks. A stock buyback is when a corporation uses cash to purchase its own shares from the open market, reducing the total number of shares that float out and about. They have become a widely popular tool in recent decades, and all the big companies regularly spend huge amounts of money to buy their own shares back. But why do companies even buy their own shares? How does that help these guys get richer? Well, this is how this little finance magic trick works. Let's say a company makes 100 million in profit, and there are 1 million shares floating around. That means each share gets $100 of profit. The corporate jargon for this is earnings per share, or EPS. We all know stakeholder language heavily relies on acronyms. Anyway, EPS is an important metric investors and analysts look at to measure a stock's profitability. Okay, cool. Now let's get back to the whole profit. The 100 million. Paying them directly out to shareholders would mean that dividends are paid out, but dividends have to be taxed. So it is in the interest of all the shareholders to not have those profits paid out. So our company just won't pay out these $100 million in profit. But what should they do with those profits then? Invest them into higher quality products so consumers get a benefit, or pay their workers higher wages? No, definitely not. No one gets filthy rich by caring about quality or workers, duh. So instead of investing that money into better products, higher wages, or anything actually useful, the company takes that money and buys back its own shares. Let's say it buys back 100,000 shares. So now there's only 900,000 shares left that float out and about in the economy. And the company's on-paper profit hasn't changed. It's still 100 million. But now that profit is divided across fewer shares. So the earnings per share is now $111, which is clearly better than a $100 EPS. So from the outside, potential investors who use EPS as an evaluating metric go, wow, this company is doing so much better, even though nothing actually improved and the EPS metric was just artificially inflated. Now, not only earnings per share goes up, the stock price also goes up due to two mechanisms. First, if the stock seems more profitable, it's obviously perceived as more valuable, and the share price inevitably goes up. And also, the basic laws of supply and demand kick in. Fewer shares and same or higher demand, shockingly, makes the price go up. So now, not only is the earnings per share metric artificially inflated, but also the stock price. And who benefits from this? Well, obviously, people looking to sell their shares. And also CEOs and other executives whose compensation is tied to the stock price. Before we keep going, I want to show you something that works almost exactly like stock buybacks, just on a much smaller, more personal scale, because the same logic applies: value extraction. Except this time, the asset being extracted is you. Every time you sign up for something, buy something, or even just browse online, you're handing over your personal data. The data gets copied, bundled, sold, and traded between companies you've never heard of. These are called data brokers. Their entire business model is collecting your information and selling it on. For ads, for profiling, for political targeting, and sometimes it even ends up being used for identity theft. Now, technically, you can try to get your data removed yourself by just sending these companies an email to delete your data. But there are hundreds of these companies, and even if you manage to delete your data once, it often just reappears. Which is why I use Incogni. Incogni automatically contacts all these data brokers on your behalf and keeps requesting the removal of your personal information over time. And if there's a specific site exposing your data that isn't covered, you can send them the link and their privacy team handles it for you. You can also track everything in your dashboard. They're also the first data removal service that's been independently verified, which is actually really important in an industry like this. So if you don't love the idea of your data being turned into a tradable asset, you can use the link in the description or go to incogni.com/AnnaBocker for 60% off the annual plan. And there's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it's completely risk-free to try. Thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to stock buybacks. In recent decades, executive pay got heavily tied to the stock price. That involved changing how CEOs got paid. Up to the 1950s, CEOs received their pay in the form of a salary, and if things went well, maybe a cash bonus. But that changed. Nowadays, CEOs get the majority of their pay in the form of stocks and stock options. That means if their share price of their company goes up and executives sell their shares, they get even more money on top of their already outrageous salary. Stock buybacks became widely popular in the last couple of decades, with a record being hit in 2025. And this phenomenon explains why we have also seen a wild increase in what CEOs take home compared to what the average worker takes home. Coincidentally, the average worker doesn't get paid in stocks and stock options and isn't able to artificially inflate the value of their compensation. Also, a fun fact is that stock buybacks used to be a big no-no until 1982. But in November 1982, under our favourite ex-president Ronald Reagan, the SEC adopted a new rule, Rule 10b-18, which created a so-called safe harbour provision, which allowed companies to buy back their own shares without fear of being charged with market manipulation. So stock buybacks used to be seen as market manipulation. Funnily enough, 1982 was also around the time when wages stopped rising for the average American worker compared to their productivity. Now, to be fair, the legalization of stock buybacks wasn't the only thing that enabled this crazy wealth gap. Lots of other anti-worker deregulatory pushes, from the deregulation of the trucking and airline industries, to the retreat of antitrust policy, to the dismantling of financial regulations and more, happened under Reagan. If you want to learn more about those, I talk about them in lots of my other videos. Anyway, my point in this video is that stock buybacks are now legal, and they are a big part that is often overlooked, that contribute to the fact that you are spending most of your life's waking hours stuck in a hamster wheel generating value for the shareholders, while these guys get richer and richer and richer. And the wealth gap between us normal people and these guys will keep growing larger and larger, unless we talk more about the economy and understand what the mechanisms are that keep them at the top. So if you want to learn more, watch my other videos where I talk more about our economic system. And subscribe to my channel, because I would find higher subscriber numbers really uplifting, and boy do I need uplifting after researching all of this very depressing stock buyback stuff. And if you want to make me even happier, you can support my work on Patreon. My patrons are basically the only reason why I can rant about the economy as my full-time job. So if you want to help me continue making videos like these and help educate others about our economy, that would mean a lot. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you create as little shareholder value as possible this week and instead pursue aggressive hedonic optimization with your friends and family.